Hey friends. So I've made an interesting connection in the last, just this morning really is when it kind of came into, into clarity for me. And it's something that, I've been aware of this phenomenon in myself for a while. I've also witnessed it in a number of my students and clients. And basically, it amounts to there's a certain kind of person, a certain kind of self-reflectively inclined people who cultivate a really, really refined awareness of our internal issues, our internal challenges, things that may be blocking us, the history of our trauma, sometimes very, extreme trauma, and sometimes just, lesser trauma, but nonetheless, it has an impact on us. We cultivate a really kind of heightened awareness of all of our patterns, habits, the ways we go off track. But then we don't do that much with it. And it's something what crystallized this morning is that for those of us for whom that is a kind of a danger or a tendency, we actually have to look at awareness, at the pursuit of awareness or the practice of awareness as something that can be indulged in if we do too much of it, if it becomes a kind of end in itself. And I watched this happen in myself, never flatteringly, but I watched this happen because it's almost like cultivating the awareness, and there's a sense of humility that you have to even be willing to observe, to develop an awareness of like some of your challenges or whatever, things that might be holding you back, patterns we might have been living out for long periods of time. We have to be humble enough to see them. And there's a kind of catharsis in that experience of recognizing, yeesh, that's something that I have to take account of, or that's something that I really have to sort of reckon with. There's a cost associated with that. I have to take that on. And that moment is an important one, and a lot of people resist that moment. And if you resist that moment, then cultivating more awareness is good. That's what you should be doing. But for those of us who've already done a lot of that, and who have already been through lots of those moments of kind of internal catharsis, or maybe it's like in a one-on-one conversation or a small group conversation. It's not shared usually widely. It's kind of shared with an individual or two, and it happens internally. If we've gotten really, like, that's kind of our thing, then it can almost become its own substitute for changing anything. Like feeling the awareness. I was thinking about a conversation I had a day or so ago, and I was like, this is such the feeling that I had was, it feels really good to look at this stuff. It just feels really good to look. And in the moment of looking, I also have the sense it's possible to choose something else. It's possible to change. It's possible to strike out in a completely different direction and start manifesting a reality that is not shackled to this thing, to these patterns that I'm spending my time looking at right now. But then that conversation ends. My day keeps going. Now it's evening. Now it's the evening routine. Now I'm waking up the next morning. Now it's kind of late morning the next day. And before I know it, nothing has changed. I'm still just going through the same motions that I was before I cultivated this awareness and really looked. And so then from the vantage point of now, it's that was a really great conversation. I want to have another conversation like that. I really want to look again. Why? Why do I need to look again? I saw it yesterday. What is there to look at that I haven't already seen? Is there really something that I'm not seeing? Maybe there are details of it that I haven't yet fully explored. I don't know. What if there's more awareness that I could gain? Maybe I just need one more conversation. But I'm making this post to kind of call bullshit on that pattern. Because the pattern of awareness, the pattern of cultivating awareness, can be its own kind of avoidance. Because you don't have to do anything. As long as I'm cultivating awareness, it feels really like I'm having, I'm facing stuff. It takes vulnerability. It takes courage. It takes humility. I have to really reckon. And then I just get to go on doing whatever the fuck I was doing before. And what? Why? The point of the awareness is to create a platform, a foundation for a different kind of action. And, but that action doesn't get easier just because we have the awareness. It doesn't all of a sudden become magically super possible to act differently just because we've cultivated some awareness and gone, ooh, I need to stop doing that. I need to do more of this, right? I mean, there's an element of awareness that's required in order to take a new kind of action. Because if you're truly unaware, you're not going to be able to change anything. You're not going to be able to make different choices or avoid falling into a pattern that you're not even aware is there. But and that's what I'm saying. For some of us, if your thing is you can't even really look yet, then spend your time looking. Do some therapy, get a coach, find a way to be taking a direct look at some of that subconscious stuff that's probably gumming up the works. But for those of us who've already done a lot of that and we know who we are not confused. If you've been to more than 4 consciousness building workshops of any kind, professional, spiritual, creative, writing retreats, even health retreats, if you've done some of this work, then you're in the category of people, we are in the category of people who already kind of know how to do awareness. But what is that awareness going to turn into? What are we going to change now that we're aware? What am I going to actually do differently today because of the conversation that I had yesterday? And people like me, full transparency, need that kick in the ass. We need something to say it's not good enough to develop an awareness and then keep doing the same thing. That's not good enough. There's another step. And the awareness, especially, I'm somebody who's so kind of like, I love using my mind. I studied philosophy when I was younger. I've always been kind of like, I've loved living in the realm of mind and ideas and thought and concepts. The geometry of thought, as Buckminster Fuller calls it, is something that has always fascinated me. I approach music to some extent that way. The music theory to me is this beautiful system that has an inherent, very elegant structure to it that we can use, that we can understand to create movement and emotional journeys, and philosophy, consciousness development, listening to, reading the great thinkers of human history. I love that stuff. But what am I going to do today that I didn't do yesterday that's going to change the outcome of what I actually see in my life? What's going to make a step away from the things that I'm now so aware of and that are problematic? I can see the issue. I can see the barrier. I've got a three-dimensional map of the territory. But I'm still kind of sitting in the same place. Why? What's the thing that's going to get me out of that? I'm asking myself this because indulging in awareness is it's a real hook. You can get really hooked there because it does feel like you're making progress. There is actually progress happening. It's just that the progress is happening on this mental level where the intersection between the understanding that is shifting in whatever subtle, minute ways and the expression of our body, mind, spirit, emotions, energy, soul in the world is almost completely unaffected by this tiny little minute shift in our mental understanding of something, of some issue that we might have, or some aspect of life that we might be wrestling with. Those shifts are essentially meaningless. They almost mean nothing. It'd be way more effective to go out on the street and sing and dance naked and see what happens, because it would provoke something in our life that's not the same as it was before, assuming that we don't already go out on the street naked and sing and dance. I don't mean to make any assumptions about you. Maybe you're way ahead of me on that. But I think you get my point. What am I going to do today that's different? So I think, for me, if I try to answer that question concretely, and if my issue is that I keep things internal and I do the work internally, then whatever I do today needs to involve someone else. It needs to get out there. It needs to enlist other people or assist, serve other people, engage in some way with folks outside, with all the people in the world outside my head, which is most of them. So I think, maybe that's my like flag in the ground. I'm going to do 3 things today that engage with other people, that put me out there, that connect me with other people, that somehow get the ball rolling in relation to folks outside myself in the areas of my professional work, my creative work. I mean, those are the 2 big ones. For me, those are the 2 big categories. So I will report back tomorrow with those 3 things. If I had more time left in this post, I would probably try to come up with them right now. But I think I have a sense, and I will report back on those 3 things, and then we'll see if they're bullshit, like if they're somehow avoiding. But at least it'll be a step out from just the indulging and awareness of what needs to change. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.